Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello there. Welcome to another edition of the program Money Radio, reaching you on Leadership Television. On today's Money Radio, we always look at issues surrounding the energy sector in Nigeria and, of course, around the world. With me in the studio to discuss this topic, today's topic is our in-house analyst, and of course, she is also the group business editor of Leadership newspaper, Inse Anthony Ugo. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Yes, our topic for today's energy focus is partial deregulation of petrol price benefiting the masses. Is partial deregulation of petrol prices benefiting the masses? All over the country, we are seeing long queues, and the problem has been exacerbated by blame games from marketers, from depot owners, and even NNPC itself. Nobody knows. Since February 2022, the problem has lingered on. Since up to date, some filling stations are not selling, whereas the few ones that are selling have long queues from the filling stations. Is there no end to this protracted fuel crisis in the country? Now we are talking about partial regulation. Who is the masses actually benefiting from this issue, from it?
Indeed, it's been a long 1 year. It's
February.
almost,
We're almost running
yes,
off January.
of course. So for the past 1 year, Nigerians have actually been suffering. It's been very difficult within this period.
Nigerians can actually bear so much alone.
Yes,
so much so that
no week goes by that you don't find long queues at filling station. And just when you think the situation is under control, before they even finish heaving a sigh of relief, another one is up. And so it has
just sum it up.
Yes, and so it has been all through from February last year. And the current state that we are seeing as a result of the price disparity that we are having.
But however, before we go deep into the topic we have our conversation going today, the issue is such that just like you mentioned, is 1 year, and yesterday Nigerians were agog. Of course, Nigerians were privy to an adverse by APC presidential candidate who says that the lingering fuel scarcity is targeted at him to frustrate him from becoming Nigeria's next president. Perhaps he sees that there is more to it than meets the eye. You think so?
The surprising thing here is that is representing the ruling party. So for him to come out to make such a
meaning he sees that there's more to it than meets the eye. You just mentioned that it's been a year, a long 2 years.
Yeah, it has.
The situation has not abated.
It hasn't abated. It has been from one issue to the other, But the underlying factor here has been the price, the pricing of petroleum products. We see that with the Russian crisis and the increase in the price of crude oil in the international market, the landing cost for petrol has been have become quite expensive. So for Nigeria to continue bearing the burden of subsidizing, it has put a whole lot of pressure, and many times they've not been able to offset the subsidy that they're supposed to pay on this product. And even besides subsidizing the product itself, there is an intervention that is meant for truckers, for the transporters of the petroleum products, who have to transport the product from the south down to the north and then to the other parts. And as a result of that, the federal government had approved an increase in that in price.
That's bridging.
Yes, that
cost.
bridging cost, a 10 naira, an extra approval that had upped the amount that should be paid to them to 12 naira, 50 kobo per litre, from the south to the north. But even at that, that money is not being paid readily to them. So all these have brought up a lot of disruption, which currently we now see it playing out in the different pricing of petrol at major marketers filling stations and the independent marketers filling stations.
Now, we've seen a situation whereby the pump price of petrol has increased again this month. Like, for instance, for most of us that got fuel, we discovered that most of these private stations were they sell at 200 and 200 naira. I think the filling station I bought was about 190, whereas the federal government owned the NNPC says it's owned at 179 naira.
No, there has been, I mean, you're not up to trend because NNPC has actually increased.
They denied that there was nothing like that.
NNPC is currently selling at 194.
194.
Yes, per litre.
And I bought
And
190. That was on Sunday. 199.
So
Not in NNPC.
of course,
Private.
yeah. Many of the you bought from a major marketer.
Okay.
So NNPC sells at 194. The major marketers sell at 199. The independent marketers sell at 290 and above.
Okay.
And even in Lagos, the independent marketers, they came up with a price of between 290 per litre and 300. Even here in Abuja, we've had major marketers, some of the independent marketers, some of their filling stations selling for as much as 315 naira per litre, 315, 320. And again, the federal government even came out the other day to say it has not increased the pump price. So what really are we?
Who are we to believe? Because situations on ground says otherwise. Just like you pointed out.
Yes.
Why is filling stations are selling just 195?
Yeah, 195, 199,
Yes, other filling
300.
stations are selling 300. And incidentally, in these stations, filling stations that you have long queues, they are the ones that are actually selling according to official price.
Yeah.
Why the ones that you don't have long queues are the ones that are selling over above 200, 250 per litre?
And even at that, before last week, I think 2 weeks ago, the major marketers were selling for like 190. NNPC filling stations were selling for 174, 174, while the others were selling for 179, 180. So we just woke up the next day. Some people, like today, you buy fuel for 179, 180. And the very next day, without any form of announcement, the marketers, you just go there and there's been a price change. The pump price has been altered, and people are buying. And they're like, what? Before they will even finish that one, when you now go to an independent marketer, you now see that their own is even 300. You are like, so that is why we've been having such a long queue. And we see that many of this the major marketers, their filling stations are not so many to cater to the demand of most of the
We've also seen
commuters
some
and,
filling stations that have been perpetually closed since the beginning of this crisis. Is it that these filling stations they couldn't meet up, or again, and so the better they remain closed or what?
Apparently, they've not been able to get the supply.
And another thing before we go on a break is that if this is the federal government, is federal government really serious? Because just like you pointed out, we Nigerians, the masses have been buying even from their own NNPC filling station at a higher price. Yet they came out to say no, it's not the truth. The situation on ground remains normal. That fuel has not been increased, and meanwhile, it's contrary to what they are saying. So, is it that they are not on the ground? They are not monitoring events. They are not saying what is happening.
That is the question that the authorities would have to answer to Nigerians. Are they not aware? Are their uh, personnel not at this filling station to take note that prices are now different from what it were? And if peradventure they are on ground and they have seen this, what has been done? Has there been any punitive measure towards those so-called towards those marketers who on their own increased prices so arbitrarily? So these are questions that Nigerians would want the authorities to answer.
Okay, yes, that is a poser. But before we throw more light on the topic for discussion today, we are going on a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at more issues surrounding this partial deregulation of fuel prices. Don't go away, we are stay tuned.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Welcome back. This is Money Radio, energy focus actually on Money Radio on Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Ukwebo, your co-host on the program. With me in the studio has been the good business editor of Leadership newspaper. She is Anthony Oko. Anthony is always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, viewers. Yes, we are still looking at the partial deregulation of petrol price. Is it benefiting the masses? This is the question we are looking at. About 2 days ago, the federal government, led by President Muhammad Buhari, constituted a 14-man committee, which is to be headed by him, to look at the perennial fuel scarcity in the country and, of course, offer solution. So, what are you expecting from this 14-man committee? And incidentally, the president is the Minister of Petroleum.
Yes, and that is why he's the one heading it. However, I know that the bulk of the work.
Is this 14-man committee, sorry, is it actually necessary? Because the fact that he's the minister, he has not done anything concerning it so far.
That is, I think it's one of, I do hope that it's not one of those tactics that that government has been known to do. They will take maybe 1 month. They will say they are studying, they are looking at it.
Just to buy time.
Yes, just to buy
but
time.
But just about 4 months to go.
Yeah, and then before you know it, it's time for elections, and then by after that, we now say he's preparing to hand over, and it's like a ploy to buy time. But Nigerians will really want the committee actually is serious in looking at the problem at hand. And then we're talking about the partial removal of subsidy. We saw a situation where the Minister of Finance not up to 2 weeks now, came up to announce that there is going to be a partial removal of subsidy starting from April 2023.
Wow.
However, the following week, we saw an increase in the pump price of petrol. So it left many people wondering as the partial deregulation started. And don't forget that for this year, between now and June this year, the federal government has budgeted 3.6 trillion for the payment of subsidy. So what are we saying? Is it the subsidy that is starting, or is it that this one is different from the partial subsidy removal that the minister spoke about? And so these are all, when all of those things happen, it raises a lot of questions for which Nigerians even don't find answers to, because the authorities, they don't take these as if they don't even, is it they are not aware, or even where they are aware, they are not ready to provide answers. And, that has been on. And when you look at it, this constant change in the pricing of petroleum without actually removing subsidy, it's Nigeria is still paying hugely for subsidy, and then the price the price of petroleum is changing, and then each time it changes, prices of things out there, transportation, food, energy goes up, and it goes up and it stays there, waiting for the next increase. And when another increase comes, it goes a step higher. And by the time eventually subsidy is now removed permanently, at what rate will the increase be? So at the end of the day, is it really beneficial? Will it be that they are keeping it, or they're planning to remove it little by little? Is it beneficial to the masses?
Actually, it's not. It's not, because we see that it's also contributing to the inflationary pressure that we have in the country presently. Now, another take too that most Nigerians want answers to is the fact that fuel scarcity has become synonymous with the election period in Nigeria, because we saw that happen during Goodluck Ebele Jonathan time, when during the twilight of 2015 elections. We also saw that during in 2011, actually. How come that fuel scarcity, although this one came a year before, because it started February last year, 2022. How come fuel scarcity is always now tied to election campaign period in the country?
Will we really say it's tied to election? I think
it's kind of synonymous.
I think it's because the underlying
situation that has made the APC presidential candidate to square.
I think it's because the underlying issues have not been tackled, decisively tackled. And so those things, once you give a short-term solution, when you don't need things at the board, you just you deal with it on the surface. Before you know it, that solution doesn't last long. So the problem comes up. But you see, if we take a look at the February last year, how it started, it was as a result of the
Russia-Ukraine
war. Even
war.
Before the Russia-Ukraine war, it was as a result of the off-spec petrol that was imported into the country. That knocked a number of engines. And so those petrol had to be withdrawn from the system. And when they were withdrawn, the time it took for a fresh supply to be brought in, the supply chain was disrupted. And it's like, since that disruption, there hasn't been a balance has not been established. And then
before the floods.
Before even we knew it, the Russia-Ukraine war came in,
Mm.
and then there were issues of higher prices of
Mm.
landing costs
Yes.
for petrol, and then before we were even that was fully tackled, the issue of flooding came up, and so it's just been one problem after the other. And then as we speak, even the transporters are still agitating on their own because they are having to use diesel to run the trucks that transport petrol that is deregulated, and they are using diesel that is not regulated, that is deregulated, to run the filling stations that they use in selling a regulated product. So who pays the difference for the hike of diesel? And so there has been so many issues, and so it still brings us back to the issue of subsidy. Is it really working? Is it not high time it is removed?
Of course, the presidential candidates, luckily, the presidential candidates of the three major parties have also already said they are going to remove subsidy when they get voted into power. But of course, they are not taking into consideration the masses, really the beneficial to masses, because most masses are fighting against it. And even the APC presidential candidate said, whether you fight it or not, this is something I'm going to do. So how is it going to be like that?
It's something that I think beyond even the payment of subsidy, if Nigeria could come up with the actual consumption
Pure consumption
in the country, it will go a long way in streamlining how much subsidy is paid. Now, right now, the problem with subsidy has been the bloated figure consumption figure being peddled in the country. Nigeria moved from consuming 36 million liters of petrol to 100 million liters.
The other time they said, is it 600 million or 60 million? Even MS Sanusi said no.
Yes,
it can't be.
So even and to think of it, when under Goodluck, President Goodluck Jonathan, that administration, that Nigeria was said to be consuming 36 million liters, many people also cried out that it was much. That how many cars are there in the country? And they tried to do an analysis to justify why 36 million was not feasible. Okay, now are we saying that between that time and now, Nigerians have more than tripled the number of cars in the country, or is it that what would we use to justify the jump in the liters, in the number of liters that Nigerians are said to be consuming currently?
And that is so shrouded in secrecy.
Yes, it's shrouded in secrecy. And so that is the figure that they have been using to compute the subsidy payment. And a lot of people have been benefiting from this. A lot of people have been reaping the country from this subsidy payment. So while it will not be Nigeria cannot continue to bear the cost of subsidy, the first point would have even been ascertaining the correct consumption of fuel, so that they will even launch a probe into the subsidies that have been paid, the bogus subsidies that have been paid, and see those who can be held culpable for it.
No, instead, just before we go, because the time is no longer on our side, I just want to find out if subsidy, perhaps first fuel subsidy, is removed, can it be worse than this? After all, just like you pointed out, some filling stations already are selling at over 300 naira per liter. Can it be worse than this?
It's actually,
even though IPMA is saying that if a subsidy is removed entirely, that will be buying fuel at as high as 800 naira a liter.
Yeah, considering the price of crude oil, It can't get as high as that. However, is the solution, the leeway will lie on if Nigeria is able to refine in country. And so that's why I think the government too have been trying to push it to when Dangote comes on stream. However, it is when it actually happens that we will see the level of adjustment that would be made. However, for the sustainability of the economy, a lot of people, in fact, those who are crying out now for full removal, they are increasing. They are increasing by the day because that uncertainty that people get. You don't know what will happen. Will there be fail for when I come out tomorrow? And it brings a lot of uncertainty, and with that uncertainty comes instability for businesses, for many operations. But if it is removed, eventually it will stabilize. And all this upping and upping of prices of things will not be there. It will happen once, and then it will begin to stabilize, and it will find an equilibrium where people move on.
No, I thank you so much. Yes, so much to say on this fuel subsidy or partial deregulation of fuel. Don't forget, same time next week is another day. Instead, before we go, what do you have to say?
Nigerians are actually going through a lot of stress with this the fuel situation, and what Nigerians want more than anything else, I would say, is availability. Is to be able to drive into any filling station, fill up, and then drive out, and then you save a lot of man hours. And it takes a lot of pressure that a lot of people currently have been off them.
Yeah,
and they know that's why the outcry has been high. That remove this thing. Let's face it once and for all.
But we are so headed from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Next week, same time, same station. It's another day. I remember before. See you.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.